I've told you many stories about people with extraordinary abilities. I've described individuals who have gained their abilities from coming into physical contact with strong chemicals. I've shared a story of a boy who would transform himself into a man and be called a hero by the public. I've even made you rethink your sanity after telling you how the bizarre power one child possesses affected the entire city around him. You have heard me tell you about the gods and demigods that exist in this realm, and how one young demigoddess has to fight the son of another god in order to find her way home. Although this fated battle is a year's time away, the three stories you will soon hear today will play a significant role in who ultimately loses the fated battle. Have I caught your interest? Then by all means, let's get started with our first story, The Winds of Destiny. The first story takes place in a small town in Indiana. Chloe Myers was an 18-year-old student at the Indiana Institute for Gifted Learners. Not just anybody could apply to be at this school. All the students are handpicked by a select group of board members who recruit only the best and brightest young minds. Chloe was an exceptional learner, scoring top marks in all her classes. Her dream was to one day become a geneticist. Chloe was always fascinated by genetics, but more specifically, with the EvoX gene that resides within every individual human on the planet. Her dream was to find the secrets behind the X gene and learn how to willingly unlock the abilities hidden within the gene. This dream will come to pass, but not in the way Chloe had originally planned. 11 months before the event that will later be known as the Gods and Champions War, Chloe physically bumped into a strange-looking individual on her midday coffee run to Siren's Cafe. His name was Peter Miller. Peter was a very thin, tall, pale-looking male in his early 20s. Peter picked himself off the ground and made eye contact with Chloe. Chloe couldn't help but notice how the sun's rays made his blonde hair shine, or how it made his green-colored eyes pop. The two exchanged apologies and names and soon learned that they attended the same school. For weeks, the two exchanged phone calls and messages with each other. They even began working on experiments together to find out how to unlock the secrets of the EvoX gene. Peter and Chloe believed their research was yielding promising results. Peter began to move to animal test trials using samples of human DNA and rabbit DNA. He determined that the rabbits' innate ability to multiply would give them more opportunities to collect data. Chloe was in awe of how Peter's mind worked. She began to feel a little jealous of him, and that drive pushed her a little harder. About a month later, Chloe had finished working on her neogenetic scrambler, a device that holds the potential for splicing DNA, combining DNA, and hopefully become the key to unlocking the secrets of the EvoX gene. Peter was completely and utterly impressed with Chloe. He walked inside of the device and glided his hands over the metal chamber with a large smile on his face. Peter was eager to test out the device on one of his rabbit subjects. Chloe expressed that the device wasn't ready for testing on live subjects. The two began to argue when one of the rabbits jumped into the chamber of the neogenetic scrambler. Peter walked into the device to get the rabbit. Unnoticed by Peter and Chloe was a 5-foot purple bat lurking in the shadows. The bat swooped down and turned on the device. Peter screamed in agonizing pain. Sparks and beams of radiation began to fly and scatter throughout the lab. One of the rays hit Chloe in the chest and she began to seize on the ground. The device stopped after a few moments. From the smoke emerged a bipedal muscular rabbit with flowing long blonde hair. Chloe awoke to this screaming. From her mouth, a large gust of wind formed, blowing the rabbit figure and the laboratory equipment into a wall. The wind stopped. Chloe tried to slow down her thoughts, but they were moving too fast. The rabbit came forward and grew 2 more arms. Chloe's mind raced more, and all she could hear was a voice in her head telling her to attack, when all she really wanted to do was escape. The rabbit figure was Peter Miller. He tried explaining that the device must have combined the rabbit DNA with his own. Listening to the impulse in her head to attack, Chloe threw her two hands forward, and a large wall of wind formed and blew towards Peter and launched him through the window. The window and a large chunk of the laboratory wall fell to the campus ground. Peter surprisingly landed on his feet. He deduced that the device must have scrambled Chloe's mind and had awoken her dormant Evo X gene. Students on campus were panicking at the sight of Peter. Peter knew that campus security, and worse, the police would be arriving soon. His first thought was to get Chloe, but the girl he saw standing where the laboratory wall used to be was no longer Chloe. The voice in Chloe's head began telling her to cause more damage. She took a deep breath into her lungs and exhaled out a rapidly moving column of air from her mouth. The students down below just witnessed Chloe creating a tornado, pun intended, out of thin air. Peter and the students blew in many directions. Many were left injured. Peter opened his eyes to see that Chloe was flying in the air with the shadowy purple bat and disappeared into the clouds. That day, Peter swore he would get Chloe back and help her get her mind back together. He'd be chasing Chloe, or should I say Blower, around the United States for the next 3 months. I say 3 months because something unforeseen happens to Peter the next time he and Blower meet again. On to our next story, The Twins of Terror. This story takes place in New Mexico. The hottest new hero in town at the time was Muscular Tiger. He is 6 feet 4 inches tall, weighing in at around 230 pounds of pure muscle. Muscular Tiger first debuted in the city 3 months prior to when the story takes place. You see, his identity is Jonathan Cabral, just a regular employee at New Mexico Sports and Fitness Facility. As far as day jobs and secret identities are concerned, this pretty much hits the nail on the head. I mean, seriously, who would suspect a muscular guy at a gym for being Muscular Tiger? It's pretty genius now that I think about it. Anyways, the story gets better when I tell you about these demonic middle school-age sisters. You heard that right. Cece and Nala are the twins of terror. The girls were working for Rodrigo Reyes of Spark City, Colorado. You might remember him as Nagato Nerve. Rodrigo, at this point in our story, was locked up at a Supermax facility alongside his cousin Ryan Blethen, aka Electress. Rodrigo wasn't all too concerned about his predicament. You see, he was very well connected and even had people on the inside. Rodrigo will eventually escape, just not in today's story. Anyways, Cece and Nala would receive encrypted messages from Rodrigo letting them know what their next assignments were. The girls were tasked with collecting 3 essential high-tech items and were encouraged to have fun while working. Cece and Nala had the most terrifying evil grins on their faces when they heard their boss say have fun. They knew all too well what this meant. The first stop on their list was to head to Carvin's Computers. Carvin's Computers seems like an ordinary computer store, but it was all a front. Joyce Carvin was one of Rodrigo's rivals in the black market for acquiring and selling high-tech gadgets and weapons. Minutes after the girls walked into the store, cops were called. Cece and Nala are unique, creepy, demonic middle schoolers. I know I'm being biased because I think all children are creepy, seeing as I was never a child in the first place, but never mind, I'm sorry. It's not yet time for my story. Back to the Terror Twins. Cece and Nala were both experimented on when they were infants. A large dose of radiation along with a chemical cocktail resulted in the girls having some very terrifying abilities. Cece had the ability to manipulate liquids. She was able to harness and shape water by simply willing it with her mind. The red-hooded girl could do one more scarier thing, but I'll save that for a little later in the story. Nala, on the other hand, had persuasion as her ability. Her victims would fall into a trance and need to obey her every whim. What made her stand apart from other superpowered anomalies was that she could control multiple hosts. When the cops arrived on the scene, there were bodies everywhere. Some were scattered around the parking lot, others through the storefront window. There were many bodies that were seemingly thrown into walls and other computer monitors around the store. The cops witnessed Nala staring down an employee, and suddenly they stopped breathing. Both Cece and Nala turned their gaze to Joyce Carvin, who was standing at the very back of the store, terrified by what she had witnessed. Cece and Nala were playing a game of body count. It was one of their favorites. They would keep tally and assign points to all their victims. Joyce was going to be worth 10 points. The cops started moving in, and Nala quickly stopped them with her hypnotic abilities. She told the cops to take a nap, and just like that, they fell asleep. "No need spoiling our game," said Nala. "I agree," said Cece. Joyce pulled out a device from her pocket. It was a sonic emitter unlike any other created. This emitter could shut down electronics like an electromagnetic pulse, reach frequencies never imagined, and cause a great deal of physical damage to anyone receiving a full-on direct blast. Before Joyce could put her thumb on the trigger button, an orb of water surrounded her head. Cece drew in all the moisture from the air and created a water bubble. Joyce was drowning. In her panic, she dropped the emitter. Nala said, "No fear, I was going to win the game." Cece smirked and then laughed. "Looks like I'll get my 10 points in just a few seconds." Joyce was in agonizing pain from trying to hold her breath. A small pebble with tremendous force flew just a few centimeters from Cece's face into the wall across from her. This unfocused Cece and the water bubble around Joyce's head splashed onto the ground. Cece and Nala turned in the direction from where the pebble flew from. Their eyes met with a muscular guy in a tiger outfit. Muscular Tiger was very strong and could lift objects roughly 10 times his own weight. He was also very agile and had 2 expanding bow staffs on his back. Muscular Tiger grabbed his 2 expanding bow staffs and connected them together and charged at Cece and Nala. He moved very quickly and closed the gap before Nala could put him under hypnosis. The staff struck Nala in the face, and Muscular Tiger jumped high in the air to avoid Cece's water strike. Muscular Tiger came down with an axe kick from above that would knock out anybody else. Nala looked over at the sleeping cops and commanded them to wake up and protect her and her sister. They did as commanded and began to open fire on Muscular Tiger. A few bullets did manage to penetrate his skin, but his response time was very quick. In just a few seconds, he was able to knock out the entire police force. When he turned around, a concussive blast propelled Muscular Tiger into one of the squad cars. The blast came from the sonic emitter. Nala was controlling Joyce Carvin's unconscious body. Cece looked over at Muscular Tiger and the drip of blood rolling down her forehead. "Now you'll pay for this," Cece said furiously. Nala smiled and said, "Oh, now you've done it." Cece outstretched her hand and her eyes began to flow with blood. Muscular Tiger's body began lifting off the ground, beginning with his hands rising behind him, without him willing them. His body then began to contort in ways he was not accustomed to. Muscular Tiger began to scream in agony with tears rolling down his face. Cece was controlling the blood inside of Tiger's body. This was an ability she rarely used because it puts a great deal of strain on her. However, she was angry and wasn't thinking straight. The sounds of sirens blaring broke Cece's concentration and her rage. She stretched, bent, and snapped Tiger's right arm, causing excruciating pain. Tiger in that moment knew his arm was broken and feared what Cece was going to do next. But nothing happened. "Consider yourself lucky, kitty cat," said Nala. "I won't easily forget this, so when I'm finished with my job, I will find you and break every bone in your body," said Cece, with blood rolling down from her eye sockets. The girls took the sonic emitter and ran off before the cops could get there. Unknown to all, except for me, of course, was a shadowy, tall, hulkish figure with a glowing green stone adhered to his forehead, lurking in the shadows. This figure seemed interested in the girls and began to pursue them from the shadows. Muscular Tiger's pride was hurt beyond repair, but he knew he would see the twins again and he would need to prepare for when that day comes. Our final story is titled West Coast Aura. Drake and many of the West Coast ability users are categorized under a special label as being aura users. Aura users have different classifications based on the color of energy they emit from themselves. Aura, or energy, in its purest form, is not something that anybody can see. They can only be seen by other aura users and anyone with an awakened Evo gene. Drake is unique when it comes to the aura user community. Drake emits what is called an S-class aura. The class system is used to categorize how powerful an aura user is. From weakest to strongest, we've got F-class, D-class, C-class, B-class, A-class, double A-class, S-class, and double S-class. Drake can manipulate his aura into the element of lightning, which in of itself is a true rarity, seeing as no other aura user has been documented using such a powerful element. Drake has used the ability numerous times to help clean the streets of California. However, Drake has a little setback when it comes to fully controlling his abilities. You see, his biggest problem lies in the recoil of using his lightning. He receives pain from his own lightning when it strikes him. Drake's been working hard on control. and he takes leaps forwards when he meets his latest nemesis, an aura user named Meenakshi Anand, or Meena for short. Meena's abilities awoke the same as all other aura users on the West Coast, the day the particle discharger from Phasa Technology Corporation malfunctioned and blew a wave of pure energy over a large region of the western coast, the biggest impacted area being California itself. Meena's abilities allowed her to sense other aura users, manipulate the aura of aura users, and, more importantly, she held the ability to use aura to teleport herself. Meena's abilities would put her in the double S class if she ever reported her abilities to the Bureau of Aura Protection, or the BAP. Meena wanted to stay far under the radar as possible. She didn't want others to find her or know of her abilities, especially the government. Meena didn't want prying eyes on her because she was an assassin, and this would just get in the way of her business. At the age of 20, Meena had already lost track of all the lives she had taken and all the wealth she had earned from her employers. She had a very good track record of not leaving behind a single trace of evidence and never leaving any witnesses alive. Drake's name had become very well known. The media called him by many names: Black Lightning, Thunder, Black Bolt, The Flash, or his personal favorite, Storm Surge. Drake must have stopped one too many evil organizations because he became Meena's next hit. When it was time for Meena to get to work, she would wear her villainous suit. She wore 2 thigh-length high-tech black boots adorned with broken hearts, a black miniskirt, and a padded pink leather top with her insignia of a heart. Due to her track record, she didn't see the point in covering up her face with a mask and thus never wore one. When working, she called herself Lady Cardiac. Meena would use her aura manipulation abilities to cause her victims to suffer massive heart attacks. While on patrol, Drake found an aura user manipulating fire that was about to set a dog shelter up in flames. He made quick work of the delinquent without hurting himself with his own lightning. This was a plus. However, before he could leave, a woman appeared in front of him out of thin air. She was walking right up to him with no hesitation. A tingly feeling rode up Drake's spine, almost like a warning or a sixth sense. Drake jumped back and said, "Stay right there. What do you want?" "Interesting. I can see your aura warned you about me. It also looks like it is trying to protect you like armor. I guess you're going to make this a lot of fun," said Meena. Drake was confused. Is she an aura user like him? If so, how is it that she appeared before him? Aura users manipulate elemental energy, he thought. "Shall we get the show on the road?" Meena teased. "I don't know who you think you are, but I've put away bigger perps than you, lady," warned Drake. Meena walked closer, and Drake shot out a bolt of lightning aimed right at her chest. Meena put her hand forward and manipulated the lightning energy and turned it into a light mist. Drake was thrown off. He doesn't have water abilities. How did his lightning aura change into mist? "Confused, are we? I can see your aura's tensing up." "I'm not sure what game you're playing at, but it's going to be game over for you real soon," Drake yelled at Meena as he began charging in. Meena stared at him and began allowing her aura to swarm over Drake. In just a matter of seconds, Drake went from offensive to defensive. He panicked. He had never felt aura quite like this before in his time of being a superhero. Drake headed for an alleyway hoping to lose Meena. His nerves got the better of him, and he began to lose control over his abilities like he had done many times in the past. Meena laughed at Drake's flying sparks. "I don't mean to laugh at you, but you're supposed to be an S-class aura user. You should really show some more confidence. Alas, you're making this boring. I guess I can just finish you off right now." Instantly, Meena teleported behind Drake. Drake froze and Meena began to manipulate Drake's aura. His body began burning up from the inside. His heart was pumping very quickly. Drake didn't know what to do. He was in so much pain and his arms were becoming numb. Suddenly, his heart began to glow, and then his body. Meena was surprised and wide-eyed at what was happening. Instantly, a burst of lightning flew from Drake's body. Meena evaded by teleporting onto a rooftop above them. The ground around Drake was scorched, and the garbage in the dumpsters began to burn in the alleyway. Drake had regained composure and control over his aura, but something felt different. "That's impossible! Your lightning is alive!" Meena shouted in shock. "I have no idea what you're talking about, lady, but I'm ready for round 2. Drake was feeling completely in sync with his aura. He felt untouchable and certain that he could take down his opponent. "Looks like I wasn't given all the intel. Next time I will be sure to put an end to you. I'm Lady Cardiac, and I will not lose to an aura user who can't control his own power. With those final words, Mina put her hands out and teleported herself away. Drake's adrenaline began to calm down, and so did his aura. I'll be ready when we meet next time, Lady Cardiac. And when we do, I'll be on a whole other level. Drake began to walk away when a tingly feeling rode up his spine again. But this feeling was somehow different from when it was triggered by Lady Cardiac. Drake turned around to see a black and white fox staring back at him. His jaw began to drop when he realized that hovering above the fox was a little purple dragon.